Hey, everybody, I'm Lisa Brennan.
And I'm Justin Trice. Welcome to Crime of the Arts,
a true crime podcast that peeks behind the curtain to shine a light on the dark and untold truths of the creative arts.
From film set mysteries to celebrity murders and heists, these two theater nerds will usher you into the unknown.
My story today is called The Big Fake. My sources were artnews.com and Made You Look, a true story about fake art. It's a documentary on Netflix. It's super cool. It's edited really well. I highly recommend it. There's lots of little laughs to have, but it's very interesting. The Knoedler Gallery was founded by Adolf Gulip in 1846. That's where our story is going to take place today. And the Knoedler Gallery is on the Upper East Side of New York City. The client list included billionaires of their time: Cornelius Vanderbilt, S.P. Morgan, Henry Clay Frick, and the gallery weathered 165 years of American history and changing tastes. In 1970, they almost filed for bankruptcy after spending too much money on a townhouse at 19 East 70th Street in New York. It's on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. It's a block from Central Park, and it has these beautiful arches on the front and herringbone tiling on the ceiling of the entrance. Once you go inside, it's got gorgeous spiral staircases, 8 fireplaces. It's kind of everything you would expect from Upper East Side Manhattan. 10-foot ceilings. It's 6 stories high. It was built in 1900s. And in the pictures I saw, it was still set up as a gallery. So you had those whited out boxes with the lights hanging all aimed. It was cool. The oil magnate Armand Hammer purchased the business for $2.5 million in 1971. That's a lot of freaking money in 1971. Michael Hammer is one of our main characters. He is the grandson of Armand Hammer, and he took ownership of the Knoedler Gallery in 2001. And he brought in a woman named Anne Friedman as the gallery director, and she worked there for just short of 32 years. She had a reputation of being a high-end seller with notable lists of wealthy clientele. In 1995, a former Knoedler employee named Jamie, oh man, these names are going to kill me. I tried to write them phonetically, and I don't know. And I watched this so many weeks ago that I can't remember exactly how it said. Jamie Andretti was very trusted. He was a guy who you went to when you needed stuff handled, not the kind of way, but in the business sense.
Not handled, but handled. Yeah.
Right. Not like cement shoes handled, but like shaking hands and kissing babies handled. So he introduces a woman named Glafira Rosales to Anne Friedman. And she was stating that she had a Rothko painting. So are you familiar with expressionist art? I was not before I watched this. Okay.
I happened to see a couple films randomly late at night. It was, it's not something I studied either, but yeah.
Right. Okay. So this painting she brought in to show Anne Friedman was wrapped in paper and cardboard. And Anne Friedman stated that she opened it and Anne Friedman just fell in love. It was beautiful. It was signed. It was dated. But she asked who the owner was and where did Glafira acquire it from. Do you know this story at all?
No, not at all.
No?
So
Okay.
First time hearing this, I'm like, okay, I want to see where this is going to go.
So Glafira said that she was under a confidentiality agreement.
Okay.
But she could say that Mr. X, quote unquote, was a part of a well-to-do family in Europe who purchased art from a guy named Alfonso Osorio.
Oh, okay.
Osorio lived on Long Island, but was from Mexico. And Mr. X buys art from him and keeps it hermetically sealed in a basement.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Mr. X then gave the artwork to his son, Mr. X Jr. So Mr. X Jr. says, I don't like these. These suck. I want to get rid of them. I don't care how much they're worth. Just get rid of them. So he sells them for really cheap. And Anne Friedman thought, wow, this is such a discovery. I mean, unfounded Rothkos that have been in a basement for God knows how long. She just ate up the whole story. And Mr. X claims he's been buying these paintings in the 1950s and 60s, they wouldn't have been very expensive then. They only would have cost like 5 or 10 grand.
If that, yeah.
So the expectation when buying and selling art is that there be paperwork. It's called provenance. So the history of ownership, and should be so that you can trace the work to the artist's studio. So it's never perfect. You know, a lot of this art is very old. But there's usually something kind of showing you how it got to the place it currently is. So Glafira Rosales said that the sister of Mr. X Sr. had some documents, but they never surfaced and were never given to Anne Friedman. So if you're catching the drift, this is not a real Rothko.
Mm-hmm.
So the artwork weren't in the background of any of the studio pictures from the artists that they were able, they have like a catalog raisonné. Some art authenticator puts together one specific artist's groupings of work and says, these are all the ones that are absolutely real. The thing is it wasn't listed in any catalog. It wasn't in any photograph in Rothko's studio. The provenance didn't really lead you back to point anything. Could some works have not made it into that catalog? Okay, so what then? I'm sure that there's random things that fall through the cracks, right?
Right, there has
so
to
usually,
be, for sure.
Yeah, so what you would usually do is you would take it to an expert, maybe even the one who made the catalog, raisonné, and have them authenticate found pieces. So David and Sam, I apologize to everyone who ever listens to this. I'm going to butcher all the names, okay?
Happens to the best
David
of us. I'm going to do that later too. Trust me. Going to do it later.
Okay, David Anfam is the expert hired by the Rothko family. Okay, and he said, yes, it's beautiful. It's a Rothko. What else do you need? Anne Friedman's confirmed. She's like, Glafira Rosales brought me this Rothko. It appeared to be authentic, and it was authenticated by the Rothko family authenticator. So then Glafira Rosales brings in a Jackson Pollock. Now, I know Jackson Pollock, and I'm not an art person. So,
right, I think everyone has at least seen a Jackson Pollock once in their lifetime. Every TV, every movie.
Yep, and they're cool.
They're cool.
I mean, so she brought in the Pollock, and Anne again goes around to all the experts and gets all of both these pieces of work affirmed. They are Pollock. They are Rothko. Domenico De Sole is the chairman at Sotheby's, and he was introduced to Anne Friedman. Do you know what Sotheby's is?
No, what is that?
Okay, so Sotheby's is one of those high-end auction companies. They'll auction off celebrity dies and they have their whole estate.
Oh, okay. I've seen that before. I wasn't familiar with the company name. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then they also do, auctions in the way you would think, where you hold a paddle up with your little number on it and they bring out these crazy pieces, artwork, ceramics. So yeah, they're a big money, highly reputable auction house. So Domenico De Sole was a chairman at Sotheby's, and he was introduced to Anne Friedman, and him and his wife went into the Knoedler gallery and they saw the Rothko and the Pollock, and they ended up purchasing the Rothko for $8.3 million.
Damn.
Could you fucking imagine having $8.3 million for a painting? I can't.
If only.
I don't even.
And if only I could just have $1 million just to live,
Yeah, right? Like, just $8.3 million is just an unfathomable amount of money to me. So let's backtrack. So we kind of know that these are not real from the beginning, right? When we're going through this documentary, we know that they just purchased a forgery Rothko, but it somehow fooled everyone. It's fooled the experts, it's fooled the gallery director, it's fooled the people who are purchasing it for millions and millions of dollars. So if it's not real, who's making these? Where is it coming from? And how can one person master the technique of multiple artists, right? So we know that Glafira brought the Rothko, and that's not real. Well, guess what? Newsflash, the Pollock ain't real either. So someone's making these paintings. Enter Pei Shen Quinn. He is a trained painter from China. He's a Chinese national. And he was very popular there, but it didn't translate into the US art world when he came to the United States. The thing that they do over in China, which I find very fascinating, is that they'll train you in the techniques of these famous abstract expressionists so that you can recreate the painting.
That's pretty clever,
and
actually.
sell them as such, right? So like they're created and they're, full-size paintings. They're not prints, they're actual paint, but they're not saying this is a Rothko or this is a Pollock, but this is a recreation of those things. And it's like a huge industry in China, which I had no idea. There was one scene in this documentary where they were in China and they showed you this room. And I mean, this person had like Van Gogh paintings, Pollocks, there were Rothkos, there were so many famous paintings that you would know, just all thrown across this like room up against the wall on each other. And it's like kind of mind-blowing because you're like, this isn't real authenticated art. And it's so haphazardly taken care of, or not for that matter. So he was living in Queens, New York. Enter our next piece of the triad. His name is Carlos Bergantinos, and he is Glafira Rosales' boyfriend. He chose Peixin to create the paintings that he was looking for. And then Peixin then gave them to Bergantinos, and he added accurate aging to these paintings.
Wow.
So the right dust on the frames. He would, Bergantinos would give Peixin nails that were dated back to whatever time frame he wanted that painting to be from. He would take, this blew my mind, he would take paintings from that time frame that weren't famous, and he would sand off the painting and give the canvas to Peixin so that he could paint on it. So that when they went through to do any kind of forensic testing on this, you were looking at correctly aged canvas and correctly aged nails when it was placed on the wood. This is
that is crazy.
And
that's the thing. First off, I mean, I just want to go back to the whole China and the schools teaching how to recreate everything. I'm like, as soon as you're saying that, I'm just picturing like this is like a heist university. This is how we're gonna teach you how to do all of this. And now you have some American students or other students, if you will, come back to America, and they're just creating a whole syndicate. I mean, I'm not condoning it, but I'm just saying, everything they're doing takes a particular skill and talent. And I mean, even regular artists, they go their whole lives trying to cement their own type of signature or artwork, if you will. And these people have mastered their own signature of forgery. Like that's just pretty impressive.
Yep. Well, and let it be said though, these are like grown adults. Mm-hmm. These are not kids. They are, I mean, when we go to eventually meet Peixin, he's like an old man. He's like in his 80s. So Carlos Bergantinos, probably in his 40s in this documentary. Okay, so fast forward, and Peixin is at an armory gallery at Chelsea Piers. And he sees his own painting in the Knoedler gallery box. And he turns around and it goes back to Rosales and is like, you need to pay me more money. Like, what the fuck? My painting is being shown at Chelsea Piers in the Knoedler box? Like, that's crazy. So when it's all said and done, between Glafira Rosales, Carlos Bergantinos, and Peixin Quan, they push through 60 forgeries through the Knoedler gallery in 10 years. Totaling $80 million.
Oh my God.
It is the largest art forgery in US history. 60 times they fooled her.
60 times. Over 10 years. That is crazy. That is crazy. A full decade they got away with this. 60 times. Oh my God.
So it's edited so well because they'll like piece you through like certain journalists and then art experts, and it's just hilarious to see how they're all like, how did Anne Friedman not know? You know, like there's one guy, he cracks me up and he's just like, either she's incredibly stupid or she's involved. Right? I mean, you're a famed art gallery director. 60 is a lot. 60 paintings is a lot. So I mean, that's something that Anne Friedman to this day says she didn't know. She got duped like everybody else. So once I go through everything, you can tell me what you think. I have my own opinion. We hear from New York art forensics Dr. Jeffrey Taylor, and he said if you look at the profit margins for each painting, so normally you wouldn't see a 100% profit on the secondary market.
Correct. So you would never see that back then.
Anne Friedman is selling these at like 200 to 800% profit from what she's buying them. So like, how is that not a cause for concern, right? Why can Knoedler buy it for $160,000 and then sell it for over $5 million. How is Michael Hammer not questioning where the hell these paintings came from? The owner. Any second market dealer would know that that profit margin is crazy. So Anne Friedman should have known better. She claims everyone wanted it to be real, so it was. There's a group called the International Foundation of Art Research. They refer to themselves as IFAR, and they were contracted to evaluate the Pollock for a buyer. And that buyer had it written in the contract with Knoedler Gallery that in the case that the painting could not be affirmed, he would get a full refund.
Okay.
So IFAR found it to be superficially accurate, but there were more negative comments than positive. The first step in the evaluation is the scholarly research. They look back into the provenance. Pollock, in particular, is a very well documented artist. He was famous in his lifetime. It wasn't like he became famous after he passed away.
Posthumously.
Why wasn't this listed in anything? Why wasn't it documented like all of his other paintings were? And the materials that they evaluated, they also found to be inconsistent. It was new paint on old canvas, and there was this weird greenish wash, which wasn't seen anywhere else in Pollock's paintings. So they compared the masonite that, this I found so interesting. They compared the masonite to a confirmed Pollock from the same time period, and it aged completely differently. So they were aging the masonite that the paintings were put on. I mean, that's so, where do you even know how to do that without
how do you learn that? And also, how did you master it to age it perfectly? Like, I just need to know their background. Were they already spending 2 decades prior just learning the ways of how to age this, or was there like
So a little bit of backstory you find out later in the documentary is that Carlos Bergantinos did have some forgery in like other countries.
Okay.
But like, if you don't have a Pollock from whatever that day age is, right? How can you possibly know what the heck it should look like? I just found that so fascinating. Like, what does masonite from the 1950s look like today? Who the fuck knows? I wouldn't even have a clue.
I wouldn't have a clue. No.
So the IFAR evaluation stated it cannot be accepted as an affirmed Jackson Pollock, and that buyer was refunded his millions of dollars. I think it was like 17 million or something like that. So rather than Anne Friedman and the Knoedler launching their own investigation, they put the work back out. Oh, I lied. So he was purchasing it for $7 million.
Okay.
And they put the work back in the gallery after this evaluation came back saying it can't be affirmed for $11 million. They upped the fucking ante. I mean, then to be so naive and to just stupidly turn a blind eye. I don't know how you can still claim that you were innocent in all of this. That's how I feel. I don't know how she could still walk around and be like, "Oh, I had no idea. Just
no idea at all.
Wanted it to be real." Yeah. Oh, geez. So Friedman went back to Glafira Rosales and said, "Hey, this is in question." And lo and behold, there is no new provenance. So Glafira came back with a new story from where she's acquiring these art pieces from. She says that Mr. X is a gay man, and he was getting his work from an art dealer named David Habet, who was also a gay man. Now, David Habet is an actual person, like a very well-known art dealer in New York City, in the right time frame. And he was employed by the Sidney Jarvis Gallery. So in this claim, Mr. X had a wife and kids in Switzerland, and he couldn't bring the art back with him because it would expose his second life as a homosexual in New York away from his family. So David Herbert dies. So he couldn't corroborate the story.
Okay.
He died, I think, in like the early 2000s. Nope. I don't know. I'm just going to cut that. Okay, so the story keeps morphing here, right? But there's still more holes being punched in her narrative of where she's getting these items from. And Glafira gave nothing to fill those voids. She would just kind of like come up with another story that swapped out another one. She wasn't filling in any blanks. So Anne Friedman states that, in her opinion, the story evolved, but it didn't change. So, like, now she never thought she was lying because to me, the story changed, right? So, like,
somewhere
Mr.
down the
X
line, it
had
definitely changed. Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole fact that he has a second life it really is a whole different story. It's a whole different story. But whatever you need to sleep at night, Anne Friedman. So we meet this evaluator named Jack Flam, and he's with the Daedalus Foundation. Yikes, dude. There's so many weird names in this. So he originally affirmed one of the paintings, an elegy. So he saw another, and he knew something was off, and he confronted Freeman and told her that she needed to have it forensically evaluated by this company called the Orion Analytics. They were the best available, and she was hesitant, saying that the guy at Orion Analytics is just one man. He doesn't have any technicians or assistants, and she didn't trust him to affirm or not for this painting. So it was sent there, regardless of what she wanted. And the science showed that the paintings hadn't even been invented yet that were on this canvas. You done fucked up now. And this was one of those scenarios where there was a prior painting that was sanded off, and they could tell it was sanded off with an electric belt sander. So there was no electric belt sanders when this should have been made. So yeah, I mean, how much more of a forgery could you get? It's clear as day to me. So when Jack Flam went back to Anne Friedman and the Knoedler Gallery, he was met with argument and resistance. And he was like, if you're not going to do anything about this, I have to do something. So he went to the FBI. Because he's like, we know this isn't real. You can't keep going. So once the investigation starts, Anne Friedman is given a leave of absence. Okay. Not fired, but pushed out, essentially. And when she asked Michael Hammer, like, what she should be telling people as to why she's taking a leave of absence, he said, tell anyone that your cancer came back and you need some time off. I guess she was a cancer survivor. So once things are less messy, hopefully you can come back. And Knoedler was going to be putting up space between. So Knoedler was trying to put space between themselves and Anne Friedman, and to let her take the fall for all of this. So bring on the lawsuits, right? Everybody knows that Knoedler is selling paintings that aren't real. Everyone's shitting bricks. Okay. So first lawsuit comes from Pierre Lagrange, and he purchased a silver Pollock for $17 million. I don't even know if I will see in my entire life $17 million. Like, I probably won't even make $17 million in my whole life. So during his divorce, an evaluation of the painting found that a yellow pigment used hadn't been invented until after Pollock died in a car crash in the 50s. So he went back to Knoedler, and they were like, go away, we don't know what you're talking about. and he confronted Anne Friedman, and she still claimed that it was real and that she could resell it for him. And he's like, well, what the fuck? What do you mean you're going to resell it? Like, we know it's not real. The FBI goes to Glafira Rosales' house on Long Island and arrests her in her home. So we meet an FBI agent. I didn't get his name here. Shit. I'll have to go back. Okay, so we're interviewing with this FBI agent, and he says that there wasn't enough evidence to convict her for a straight fraud case. But look at it this way. Hold on one second. The money, okay, so any money that is received for these paintings should go from the gallery banks to Glafira Rosales' bank accounts, which were in Spain. And then you should see 90% of that money go to the families that Glafira is selling these art pieces for, right? But that's not what's happening. She's just keeping all of the money. There's no one getting paid out on this. So millions and millions of dollars. And that's income that she's not reporting. So the FBI was able to file federal tax charges on her. And that's how they were able to arrest her. So since she was a flight risk, they denied her bail, and she was in prison for months awaiting trial. And the fact that she was keeping all the money proved she knew something was up with those paintings, right? She didn't have anything set up for anything to go to anyone else. And truth be told, she sang like a canary.
They usually do.
Yes. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, there's so many people involved in this. It's like, are you going to be the one to take the bag on this? You know?
Someone's got to be the fall guy or fall girl every time.
Right? So she confesses to the FBI, and she told them who was making the paintings. And she didn't want to be the only one involved in this scheme to go down for it. So then Friedman gets a call that Glafira confessed that the paintings were fake. She'd spent 10 years selling, believing in, and defending all of these paintings. 60 fucking paintings. I mean, it's earth-shattering to her. Her entire career was centered around all of these fake paintings. She's like this well-renowned art dealer in one of the biggest galleries in New York. And in the 15 years she's been the art director, 10 of them she's been selling fake art. And it's crazy because in her interviews, let me describe her to you. She has short curly hair, all gray. She's probably in her 60s at least. She wears these little clear wire rim glasses, and she wears all gray clothes. You're like, she's just gray. Everything's gray about her. and she has absolutely no fucking emotions. Stoic. I mean, her main emotion is that she's powerful. Like she has strength. You know, like she's pushing through this somehow. But I can't tell if it's a facade of strength, or she's just full of it the entire time. Like I flip-flop back and forth on how I feel about Anne Friedman. So yeah. And this is aesthetically like her thing. You know how I'm known for like only wearing black and white? This is her thing.
That's her thing. Fake strain, or the appearance of strain. Yes.
Well, no, the gray.
Oh, the gray.
The demure gray. Like for an art dealer, I find that fascinating. Like everything you do is color, but you are not a colorful person. Neither is her personality. So in total, there's 10 lawsuits filed against the Knoedler galleries and Anne Friedman. So they're both listed. 9 of those lawsuits were settled out of court, and 1 went to trial. Enter Domenico de Solis again. The de Solis wanted their money back for that fake Rothko. And that wasn't offered to them in the pretrial negotiations. And this family wanted to kind of retake their reputation, I feel like, because they were associated with Sotheby's. This man's also the one of like the chairman or the higher ups at Gucci. Okay, so he's like, he makes all his big money from big companies, and they were kind of made to look like fools at this point, right? So I really do think it was more about avenging their name and making an example of Anne Friedman that they refused to settle. The family's worth $3 billion with a B. Okay, 8.3 million. Yeah, 8.3 million on this painting isn't going to break the bank for them, right? This is something else. So in 2016, they go to trial, and the courtroom is packed. Now, I know these people were lied to and tricked, but Eleanor de Sole is the spouse of Domenico. And she says, I looked at Anne with daggers in my eyes. And she just like interviewed like a middle schooler, like a pissy middle schooler, like Anne danced with her boyfriend at the spring dance. Like she just was like very immature, very childish. And I really, honestly, I struggled to feel bad for the two of them. Yeah, she rubbed me the wrong way. So all these witnesses were called who made Anne Friedman feel like these paintings were real over the years. And they all, every single one of them, starts backtracking.
Of course.
Not one of them claimed to have said anything to the notion that they were real. And the defense showed emails that they wrote. And in the emails, they were agreeing with her. But on the stand, they would bold-faced deny the context of that email. So we know Anne Friedman didn't authenticate anything alone, right? They all threw her right under the bus. And it comes out in questioning that the Knoedler Gallery accountant who, hold on, let me just see what I'm trying to say here. So I handwrite notes on my iPad when I do this, and then I can, transfer it to text and then drop it into Pages. But for some reason, there's like a lot of really weird.
The translations didn't go through correctly.
Yeah, but then like I don't know, certain symbols or whatever are just boxes. So I'm like, what am I trying to talk about? Okay, it comes out in the questionnaire of the Knoedler Gallery accountant that had it. Okay, got it. Okay, so it comes out in questioning of the Knoedler Gallery accountant that had it not been for the $80 million in forgery sales, they would have been millions of dollars in debt and closed decades ago. So the day that Michael Hammer and Anne Friedman are scheduled to testify, I mean, everyone knows it's about to come to a head, right? The entire trial up to this point has been the prosecution showing everything that they needed to show. Everyone backtracked. Everyone let Anne Friedman fall on the sword for this. Michael Hammer has to come up on the stand and now account for $80 million that saved his company, right? He also looks very guilty in all of this. So 1 hour before Hammer is ready to take the stand, they come to a settlement.
Really?
Imagine that.
I am shocked. So shocked.
Oh, shocker. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, what could they say to defend themselves? What could they actually get up on the stand and then be cross-examined that wouldn't have dug this hole deeper? Nothing. There was no other way to go about it. And honestly, like Michael Hammer drives around in a $500,000 Mercedes wearing like blue velvet suits. Like he's obviously taking this money and spending it for himself, right? He was clearly benefiting from these sales. And Anne Friedman was taking home a salary of $300,000 a year. I mean, these people were it was really beneficial for them to believe that these were real.
Mm-hmm.
Really financially beneficial. So there's nothing they could say that would sway the jury in their favor. Or worse, they could have found themselves to be criminally liable. This is just a financial case at this point. This is two people. This is not the state versus Knoedler or Anne Friedman. This is the DeSoleils wanting their money back, right? So no charges have been filed for them. The only person who's got charges at this point is Glafira Rosales. So I also think that Domenico DeSole found that he got to say his piece. You know, he got to avenge his name and show off. So he took the settlement. So Glafira Rosales was the only person criminally charged, and she was sentenced with time served, which was only a few months. And then she was put on 9 months house arrest. That's it.
Only 9 months. Wow. Very
so
lenient.
She spent a couple of months in prison. Yeah, I think so too. Her boyfriend, Carlos Bergantinos, and Pei Shen Quan all fled the country back to their home nations of China and Spain, and they were never charged. And that blows my mind.
They're not allowed back here, though, right? They're not allowed back in the U.S. Is that the stipulation? Or
if they were to come back, they would be arrested. So it would be foolish for them too. But China does not have an extradition agreement,
right?
And Spain, we'll get to that in a second. So they made it out to seem like Glafira was also a pawn and was not some great mastermind in all of this. And I kind of feel like that might be true as well. She's the only person to get involved in this mess that wasn't in the documentary for an interview. Okay. We saw Carlos Bergantinos. We saw Pei Shen Quan. We saw Anne Friedman and the DeSole family. So she had to forfeit all of her money as restitution, and she still lives on Long Island. Carlos Bergantinos lives in Spain, and as a Spanish national, Spain denied extradition to the United States for him. So he is in his own home, living free in Spain. Pei Shen Quan lives in Shanghai. China, again, doesn't have an extradition agreement with the United States, but he does have all the fame for doing this and none of the consequences. Everyone knows it was him. Anne Friedman was not indicted on criminal charges. They went across all the people they interviewed, and every one of them in this documentary was like stammering over their surprise to the fact that she's not in jail. It really was so well edited. Kudos to the editor, whoever you are. It was hilarious. You'd think after all this she would retire with whatever money she made, but nope. She opened her own gallery called Anne Friedman Art, also on the Upper East Side. The gall of this woman. Like, what idiots are going to go to this gallery and buy art from her? Her credibility was publicly shredded. And there's proof that for 15 of the 25 years that she'd been in business, she was duped by some guy's art who was creating it in his garage in Queens. I would not buy a glass of water from this woman.
Agreed.
So that is the story of the big fake. Again, Made You Look was a great documentary. It's on Netflix. If you do get a chance to watch it, it's pretty enjoyable. It's a one-off, so no multiple episodes or anything like that. So yeah, that is my story for the week. Do you think that Anne Friedman knew?
Oh, I think so. Oh, are you? Sorry, I didn't know if you were asking me if that was your hot take. Because the way.
No, I don't have a hot take. What you got?
I personally do think Anne Friedman did it. Well, you know what? This is what I think. Just off of the way you described her demeanor, everything about it. I think Anne Friedman in the beginning did not know it. I think she might have been a little naive, but she started to realize certain hints and certain things were happening. And then finally, she knew and she chose to, my theory, this is just my theory, she chose plausible deniability. She's like, if I truly believe I don't know anything, then I don't know anything. Because who's going to believe this little old lady knew anything?
Uh-huh.
So
I'm so
that's what I feel.
innocent.
I'm so innocent and demure. Yes, could not have been me. I don't focus on the pish posh of forgery. That's really
Right.
what I
Yeah.
thought about it.
Dude, I totally agree. I feel like she probably got through like, right, to find, right, discover 5 pieces of art in your lifetime that were not documented somewhere is not unimaginable,
Right.
right? 5 is probably a high number though.
But then we entered
50.
10 and 15 and 20 and we kept going up to 60. So you clearly knew.
Yeah, you chose to pretend it wasn't real. Like if you
Yeah.
believed hard enough, you could convince everyone else, and she fucking did. She just did. So kudos to you, Anne Friedman. You pulled this off, but good lord, the first person to buy something from you in your new art gallery is idiot.
But you know what? Again, it is Manhattan, and with that said, we live in an age where once things go trending, people will probably look at this case now and be like, "I'd like to visit her shop if the shop is still there. I'd like to buy something.
Oh,
I'm buying something from someone who managed to cheat the law. Like, here we go."
you
They'll
know
probably do
what? You might be
TikTok with
right.
it. Yeah, yeah. She's probably making a
Well,
lot
and
of money.
she still is very much open. She
Okay.
definitely has a website. I looked at it.
Oh
Um,
no.
she has she has like gallery showings of specific artists. They're current artists. They're not old artists. So maybe that helps her somehow.
Okay. Okay.
Um, you don't need to authenticate it because the artist is standing in the room, right? But um, but yeah, she's still very, very active. Yeah, people be great.
People be
Okay.
crazy. It's all about the money, though, for some people.
Yeah, and the notoriety, you know. And you're right. There probably are people who are like, I bought an Anne Friedman.
Later tonight, I'm
And
gonna
then
have to like go on TikTok or something random and take a look, and I'm sure there's like 15-year
oh my
old
god, please
kids,
do
like,
tell
yeah.
me.
To all
I
you
don't
listeners
TikTok. I'm
out
too
there
old.
at some
Too old.
point, yeah. I mean, I'm too old too, but I still look. But to all of you listeners with listening to this right now, at some point, you do some homework for us. You get back to us on that. Let us know if there's TikToks or random people
What
over
do you
here posting.
find?
Yeah, what do you find? Do you see anyone posting that they're buying Anne Friedman paintings and cheering about it? You let us know. Would love to hear the
Yeah.
feedback. Yeah.
Yep. All right. What do you have for us?
All right. So what I have for us is actually within the art realm as well, the literal art realm. It just so happened that way. We did not plan this, people. It
Oh, we
just
have a theme. A themed
apparently
episode,
we have a
everyone.
theme. Don't get used to that
So
though. We might not always have themes. You never know.
no, probably not. With that being said, we both pick things and just go, you didn't do this thing. Okay, good. Don't tell me anything about yours. Just let's make sure we're not telling the same story.
Exactly. That's pretty much where we're at with it. So my
um,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
so let's do our break here and kind of start from the beginning.
Okay.
Our opener for if we were to have a cut.
Oh yes, in our separate
In
yeah.
case we do our separate episode, yeah. What is up, everyone? Welcome to Crime of the Arts. My name is Lisa Brennan, and my co-host is
Justin Trice.
What's up, Justin? This
Nothing
is your
much.
week, my friend.
Yes, this is my week and I'm ready to go. I have hopefully some good stuff for you guys. I think I have a very catchy story that you might be into.
Cool. I'm ready.
All right. So, on one second. All right. And I'll just do my intro too in case you want to edit it in. All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of Crime of the Arts. We appreciate everyone for taking some time out of their day to tune into our discussion, and we look forward to sharing another story with you all today. I'm one of your co-hosts, Justin Trice, and joining me on the show today is the other co-host,
Lisa Brennan.
Today, we're going to discuss the story behind the infamous Salvador Dali painting that was stolen from Rikers Island, which was essentially coordinated by a group of correction officers working there as an inside job. Before I go any further, I'll just list a couple of my sources now. There's an Esquire article called "The Rare Dali Painting Once Hung at Rikers Island Until the Guards Decided to Steal It." Another one of my sources would actually be an article / mini news clip within Inside Edition called "How a Salvador Dali Drawing Was Stolen from Rikers Island." Also, I used Encyclopedia Britannica in regards to Salvador Dali, so I can explain to those who don't know what type of artist he was and how influential he is. And then there's a special source I'd like to say, which would happen to be my mother, because the whole reason I even started to find out about this is my mother was a correction officer for over 22 years. She never told me anything while she was at work. Once she retired, though, every now and again, she's mentioning these things, whether they're riots or prisoners missing, or how a Salvador Dali painting apparently was stolen and replaced with something else, which we will get into later. So with that said,
I wish your mom would write a book.
Yes, I wish she would too at this point. I would definitely read it. I'm sure it would become a bestseller. So thank you, Mom. Yeah, you were my primary source on this.
Thanks, Mom.
Now let's take a deeper. Oh, sorry, hold on one second. Okay, there we go. So for those who don't know, Salvador Dali was a renowned 20th century Spanish artist that was known for his work during the Surrealism era. His artwork is known to be one of the most innovative of the time, with his signature depiction of subconscious imagery. Some of the most notable pieces of his art include An Andalusian Dog, The Gold Age, and The Persistence of Memory, which is arguably his most well-known painting. To this day, he's still known as one of the most influential artists of all time. Now,
did you ever see that movie that Rob Pattinson did where he played Salvador Dali?
Yes. Again, Robert Pattinson, I know a lot of people still think of him as Twilight, but when he was stepping out of all of that, I mean, he really
that was after Twilight.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. After Twilight, when he was branching out and people were still hating on him. Again, that film came out, and I mean, he was really committed. He really did the work. He looked awesome. Like Salvador Dali. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah,
definitely
it was really great.
You check it out.
Yeah, if you want to know, that's a majority of my insight into Salvador Dali. It's that he plays Salvador Dali, and it's the story of his life. So it was good.
It was pretty good. Now, let's take a deeper look into the story behind his stolen painting from Rikers Island and its significance in art history. Before we get into the details of how the painting got stolen, we must first examine how it was initially created and how it ended up in Rikers Island in the first place. During the latter half of his illustrious career, Salvador Dali was scheduled to visit Rikers Island in 1965. Now, the main purpose of his visit was to give the prisoners art lessons and help promote a program called Art in Prison at the time. However, can you imagine like an actual artist that, wants to help with prisoner reformation and things like that? Like,
oh, amazing.
Even back then, I mean, that was unheard of, and now it's still kind of, but yeah, he was trailblazing in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's super cool that he chose Rikers Island too. I feel like that's like known for being a very hard prison with hard prisoners. It has a reputation.
Correct. For those who don't know, it does have a reputation. It is located within New York. It is one of the toughest prisons you could imagine. I'll let you all do some research. And my mom, yes. And
your mom is a boss.
My mom was a tough lady.
By choice.
My mom was definitely a tough lady. She was ex-military, and she did Rikers Island as a correction officer for over 20-something years on the midnight shift. So you can imagine a lot went down. But yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so the main purpose, like I said, was to give lessons for this program called Art in Prison at a Time. However, he ended up having to cancel the visit because he woke up with 101-degree fever the day he was supposed to go to Rikers Island. So rather than leave them completely empty-handed in an attempt to make up for his absence, he quickly decided to paint a painting that was meant to be the portrayal of Christ on the cross. So on the bottom left-hand side of the painting, he wrote, "To the dining room of the prisoners, Rikers Island." And on the bottom right-hand side, he wrote down the year the painting was created, which was 1965. Around the time he originally drew it, the charcoal and watercolor painting was said to be worth around $180,000. The painting ended up being displayed in the jail in multiple different buildings and even made its way to several museums on occasion for rental of educational purposes. Now, for a long period of time, the painting remained at Rikers Island and was mostly unnoticed by those around it. At some point in 1981, one of the inmates at the prison even threw a cup of coffee at it, which cracked the frame and left a stain on the painting itself. It was, I know, it's just like, people appreciate the damn art. Like, and I just feel like people, you know, the captains there, the main guards, I feel like at some point, even the warden, you had to be like, this is a Salvador Dali painting, so don't do anything
Let's
to
put
it.
plexiglass around it. What the fuck are we doing right now?
Right? So
how can coffee touch it? That's fascinating.
And if for those listening, if you ever decide to look up this painting, you'll see plenty of pictures of it. And I mean, that coffee stain is huge. Like, it is now just part of this painting.
Okay, hold on. I want to look it up.
Yes, look it up right now.
What is it called?
Oh, I'm sorry. I
can just Google Rikers.
Yeah,
properly,
just Rikers.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it doesn't have a true title to it, but when you see it, you'll notice. You'll look at the cool watercolors splashing down, and then you'll just see coffee on the bottom right. Let me know.
Let's see. Computer is a little slow.
No worries.
Salvador Dali that was stolen from Rikers Island. Oh my god.
Yeah. Basically, that mug shattered.
Creepy. This is a creepy painting. I mean, it does kind of look like Christ.
Yeah, it still kind of looks like Christ, but for someone to be at such a high fever to even, I don't know, try to design it.
So is the coffee in this down by the date?
Yeah, it's down by the date. Yeah, someone threw it right into there.
I see it.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Right. Yeah, that's a pretty intense painting to have hung in a jail.
It is very, it's a very intense painting for sure. And, you know, they had it displayed there so all the inmates could see it more or less, at least back before the mug was thrown.
Gotcha.
But yes, after, you know, they threw the cup of coffee at it, which left a stain on the painting, it was sent over to a gallery in Virginia for some time before being returned to the prison and left in the basement. After Salvador Dali had passed away in 1989, one of the prison guards actually found the painting near the trash sometime in the 90s. And they decided
just in the basement,
yeah. And just decided to bring it back upstairs into the jail itself. So once one prison guard decided to do that, and once it was saved, they decided to hang it by a vending machine in one of the buildings within Rikers Island. The warden at the time decided to hang up a note right next to the painting stating that it was worth $1 million. He didn't fact check this. He didn't look into this. He just decided, I'm going to leave this note here to make it seem more valuable and more precious to the prisoners.
To all of the criminals
all of the criminals too. Yeah. We're in a prison, you know, we want some art. Let's just showcase. Yeah, we're fancy. Let me just put this price tag on here of $1 million, which isn't necessarily true at all. But Okay.
Idiot.
What could go wrong?
That is stupid. Oh my goodness. Hey, criminals. Some of you are here for theft and murder. Look at this. It's $1 million hung on the wall in Rikers. Who wants it? Come get it.
Well, that's the thing. Where it was placed, technically they can't get to, but still, you never know who you're working with, which is where
it's just
things
like dangling the carrot, right?
Yeah,
you're really fucking
you're
for
enticing someone to do it, which is just crazy.
Yep.
It's like, here you go. I mean, the only other thing you could do more is just like take it out of the new case that it's in and just leave it there. I don't know, leave it on the floor right there. Let's see what happens.
It only gets worse from here. Okay,
yes, it only gets worse from here, people. So yeah, again, like I said, the warden at the time decided to hang up a note right next to the painting stating it was worth $1 million. And in retrospect, that may not have been the best idea because it gave the people around the jail the perception that the painting was extremely valuable, and it made a target for those who were looking to take advantage of the situation. Before they made the estimated worth of the painting known to others, most people didn't even pay attention to that painting at all during the time that it was there. So we're going to fast forward a little bit. Several years after that, in 2003, there was an unplanned fire drill that occurred in the prison around 1 a.m. Very peculiar because, again, all fire drills there within Rikers Island, I mean, they're all organized, you know, through the system, through the wardens, through everything else. Everyone knows way in advance on what day this will happen. But on this
did I ever think about the fact that they have fire drills in prison? I don't know why. How would you even coordinate that? Like, do you know how many prisoners are at Rikers?
I don't know offhand. At least back then, I mean, there's quite a few thousand, and there's different buildings. And again, it is on an island itself. But again, that's the thing. If a fire drill was ever set up, it was always known months in advance when it would happen, so they could properly coordinate this. Because again, you have all of these prisoners. You have to have some sort of coordination and authorization to do such a thing. But no, one night or early morning, 1 a.m., there was that unplanned fire drill. All the inmates at the time were put on lockdown, and the guards were instructed to secure their positions across the facility. Okay. Now, during this time...
So wait a minute. The fire alarms are going off. No one expected it to. So they lock everybody in their jail cells.
It's a lockdown, yeah. Now, that could be a whole other podcast in itself about the manner of how these things are done. I can't even begin to imagine nor go into that, but there's plenty of documentaries about no, you're good. There's plenty of documentaries about Rikers Island and just how certain things were handled, and you can see now why those documentaries exist. But on the flip side, to play devil's advocate, on the flip side, it could be, they might have thought it was fake, and that's just procedure first to lock down and double check. Who knows?
I mean, or there was an actual fire.
That too, or there was an actual fire. All the inmates at the time were put on lockdown, and the guards were instructed to secure their positions across the facility. During this time, the painting was taken and swapped with a replica before the lockdown had ended. It wasn't long before one of the guards that were typically posted by the painting had noticed that it had been replaced with a knockoff version right under everyone else's nose. So, I mean, for instance, for those of you that try to look up the painting, you're going to see it is, again, watercolors, but the painting itself, the fabric itself it looks like it's on like a wooden border, and it's just properly condensed and glued within that. The fake itself, the reason why the guard, I guess, slightly noticed this is because what they believed were to be the fake replica that was replaced there, it was actually smaller. Not only was it slightly smaller, I mean, who can really replicate Salvador Dali? Instead of like the beautiful strokes of the watercolor, which even in his feverish days, it turned out to sort of look like the cross, you just had cheap paint. It wasn't the same fluidity of the watercolors. And also, instead of the wooden frame, they used another type of frame, which the painting, the new smaller painting, clearly didn't fit on, so they stapled. There was visible staples all across the edges of the painting itself into the new cheap frame.
This is no Carlos Bergantinos over
No,
here.
not at all. We're looking at two opposites right now. We're looking at parallels right now. We're looking at, Lisa had a very sophisticated art story with people who went to basically school to train to be con artists, and now we have just some people who are over here like, I could probably get away with this, half-assing it. Nobody's ever gonna know. We're in a prison. Who's gonna see it? Like that, yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, that's why ultimately it wasn't long before that guard noticed it, because it was just such a cheap knockoff. Eventually, they brought this to the attention of the warden, who quickly noticed that the painting was much smaller than the original. They realized that the area where the painting was hung was under surveillance and that there was a guard that was supposed to be posted there 24/7. However, when they tried to look into the incident even further, they found that the security tapes had mysteriously gone missing. Surprise, surprise.
Oh, surprising.
So it was at that point that they decided, it was at that point that they started to realize that this might have been an inside job by some of the guards, because the inmates did not have access to the lobby area where the painting was hung. Go figure. So
someone's gonna have a new home at Rikers Island with his other friends.
someone might, or they might not. Or this is where it gets interesting, okay. The nitty gritty on this. So what happened
so there's one person who's known to be placed at this painting, and all of a sudden the tapes are missing, the painting's missing. Is the guy missing?
Yeah, there's a guy missing, and it's a whole. To be fair, with the guy being missing, I mean, it is a fire alarm. Maybe they had secondary duties to check on. Who knows?
Okay.
So you can kind of get away with that, but missing tapes, everything else, it's just all too coincidental.
Screaming theft. Yeah.
So yeah. Now, here's where it starts to get interesting. This whole thing has already been interesting, but we're going down the rabbit hole of just absurdity now. So that's where we're at. The people involved within the heist, we'll call it a heist for now, or should I? There are people. We're going to get to that. But in order to get to that, we have to understand that there's always one person within the group that initiates the downward spiral, right?
Yep, like me in this podcast. I'm like, hey, Justin, we're doing a podcast. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I'll give you a snippet now. The culprits started to turn each other in one by one less than a week after they had successfully staged the heist. Okay. It started with one of the guards named Timothy Pena. He turned himself in 3 days after they stole the painting. He went on to start naming.
Couldn't take it.
He couldn't take it. He couldn't take the guilt. He couldn't take any of it. He was just a wreck, and he just wanted to come clean. So ultimately, Timothy Pena, who turned himself in 3 days after they stole the painting, he went on to speak with the Inspector General of the city's Department of Investigation. For those don't know who the Inspector General is or what that Department of Investigation does, it's essentially set up, it's organized where they have this Inspector General who is in charge of weeding out bad correction officers and corrupt bosses. Okay. So at the time, Mike Caruso was the Inspector General at the city's Department of Investigation. He, within that first week, didn't really have any clues as to who potentially could have done this or what really happened. But again, he didn't really need to figure it out, because 3 days in, Timothy Pena went in and ultimately he started naming his fellow accomplices who were all working at Rikers Island, which included Greg Sokol, Mitchell Hockhauser, and the alleged ringleader of the entire theft named Benny Nuzzo. I'm just going to throw that out there right now. That is like, if I was watching a heist film, I feel like Benny Nuzzo, that's the type of name where it's going to be the ringleader. If you're watching any of those classic films, yeah.
Timothy Pena sounds like the guy who might be the weakest link.
Yeah, or he might have a heart. Maybe he was goaded into it. But I just see this movie unraveling in my head several different ways.
How has
There's
this not been made? How is this movie not made?
well, it probably
So
had been
interesting.
made. It probably had been made as like just action fiction, but the thing is like fiction is just fiction until it happens. So, um,
Perfect.
I just picturing like the movie Heat and all these other like heist films now in my head. But yes, again, the alleged ringleader of the entire theft was named Benny Nuzzo. So the inspector general originally I'm sorry, give me one moment. So it goes Timothy Pena, once he started naming his fellow accomplices, he states that they had all originally been approached by him in November of 2002 to plot the heist, and he promised them that they would each be paid handsomely once the painting had been sold on the black market. In the end, the inspector general was able to convince Pena to wear a wire to get his accomplices to confess about the crime.
Oh, snap.
With that said, and this is the part that always gets me, Pena cooperated with the inspector general to wear said wire and rally everyone together to get them to talk about the heist and get them to admit that they did it allegedly. But it's all about the location. Pena met with Sokol and Hockhauser and Benny Nuzzo. He met them downstairs, essentially, in the basement, basically like the boiler room.
The prison?
In the prison. He met with them with the wire on to discuss all of this in a basement, in a boiler room. You can imagine that's a very noisy place within a prison, okay? I'm just saying all of this now so you can put into context later, or rationalize why certain things might end up the way it ends up. So yes, he talks to them about the heist. He explains how he feels guilty. He's nervous, and you got Sokol and Hockhauser basically stating to him like, "Listen, they have nothing on us. Just keep saying you don't know anything. You don't know anything." Because if you say you don't know anything, they can't pin it back to you. And Nuzzo's just sitting there, allegedly. He's not saying much, but you can hear within the audio that Sokol and Hockhauser are explaining to Pena, like, don't say anything, blah, blah, blah. But the rest of the audio is kind of muddled because, again, they're in a boiler room. So there's a lot of in and out with the audio. I'm going to leave that there. Now, at
Perfect.
the same time, around the same time that Pena was wearing that wire, it could be within that week's time, simultaneously, the police actually started doing an investigation, started to focus more on their attention on Nuzzo. They got a warrant. They essentially searched his home. They found nothing. Then they went on to get a warrant. They searched his mother's home. They found nothing. Eventually, they went back to the mother's home to do another deep, thorough search. And what they actually found in there was not the painting, but they found a secret room, if you will, which had over $1,000 worth of stolen items from Rikers Island. I'm talking about like specific gun lockers. It's his own guns within the locker, but you managed to take the gun lockers from Rikers Island and transport it into this home. You have that. You had specific journals that was marked via journals with blank pages marked Rikers Island, all these other things. And there was some other documentation that he had there, which essentially could be used to forge paperwork, if you will, within Rikers Island, because Nuzzo himself was kind of
my God.
Yeah, Nuzzo himself was he was a higher correction officer, a top officer. So, all of his accomplices were people that worked under him. At least 2 out of 3 respected him, so it seems. Okay.
Oh, okay. So he's got his subordinates doing all of this. Oh, see, that in itself is very interesting for the dynamic of how we probably got this whole group together.
Correct.
And he's kind of a magician. How do you steal a gun safe?
Yeah, how do you steal a gun closet, and how do you it just I'm just blown away by most of this.
Okay.
So yeah,
I love
there's
that he
all
has
of
a
that.
Riker's bat cave full of hidden, secret, stolen crap.
Well, my thing
Perfect.
is too, it was only $1,000 worth of stolen items at the time. But my thing is like, this man was working there almost 25 years. He was close to pension and everything else. When did he go corrupt, or when did he start stealing things? And at one point, was it a lot more things? Was it worth a lot more that he was stealing? So yes, all of that went down, but they never found the painting there. Okay. Let's see. They never found the painting there. Once it happened, all of the individuals involved, though, ended up getting charged with second-degree grand larceny, and they were taken to trial for their crimes. But here's where
Were they tried together?
They were tried.
Separately?
They were initially tried separately. Trial.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, they were all tried separately, basically for the same thing. Now, so that happened. Pena, Hockhauser, and Sokol, they went on to plead guilty to those charges, while Nuzzo continued to deny those allegations altogether.
Oh my god. The gall, the audacity.
The audacity. I mean, he at this point, I guess he's like, I'm fully in this. I gotta commit to keeping saying my innocence. This whole time I've been saying I have not been involved, that blah blah blah.
Well, I mean, so the three attorneys for the other three guys must have sat down and been like, we're all being tried separately, but
correct,
3 against 1 probably holds more weight.
Exactly. And I'm sure they were trying to cop a deal. But remember the whole wire I mentioned earlier in the audio that was brought into the court. And within that audio, again, Nuzzo, he sat there. He never actually said anything in regards to the heist. He might have just nodded here or there, might have been like, just calm down. But he never complicitly said, we have working audio that Greg Sokol and Michael Hockhauser was admitting to it, and also stating that you need to calm down, just plead deniability, all these things. And then whatever Nuzzo might have started to say was all garbled amongst in and out of the boiler room. Yeah. And they actually, it's crazy, right?
Incredible. Yeah.
So
the foresight of this man is fascinating.
They hired a professional audio engineer too to try to separate the sound, and that's the problem because of the noise and everything that was happening down there, which is so indistinguishable that you couldn't separate the vocal tracks from that. So again, honestly, the court was lucky that they even got the 2 other guys saying like, well, you need to do this, but right. Yeah, they really didn't get Nuzzo saying anything. So ultimately, they all have separate lawyers. They all clearly tried to do separate deals. Mitchell Hockhauser was sentenced to 1 to 3 years in prison for his involvement in the heist. Timothy Pena only received 5 years of probation because of his willingness to come forward and expose his accomplices.
Be the first to talk, man.
He was the first to talk.
Stupid shit.
And Greg Sokol was also given probation for 3 years and had to pay a fine of $1,000. Now, Benny Nuzzo.
So wait, why did the one guy go to prison? Is that a shit lawyer?
I mean, it could be a shit lawyer, but again, the audio itself, Hawkeye, he was definitely, he was more damning. There was no way around that.
He was probably the one who was down there like amped that they had done it, and
yep.
Too much. One of those bros.
It was definitely, there was enough on him. It was damning. I'm just like, not for nothing, not that I would ever plan a heist or anything like that, but I just have to be real with you. If a heist was ever planned and I was involved, if you call me and tell me let's meet up to talk, I'm not meeting up to talk because I already know what the deal is. Someone's wearing a wire, someone's doing something. I will not be involved in this.
It's so funny. So the thing about this kind of a scenario is it's so relatable to it's a performance, right? All of it is a performance. Once you get into like those types of situations and they like just the thought that Benny had to like not really say anything he just put it on, he turned it on, and then it's just so much planning and so much mental control to not overdo it. It's just, I am not a person who's able to like think that far back, where you, on the other hand, are like really calculated in your words and why you say them. There's always a reason. So it's very funny. I just imagine that little switch going, okay, turn it off. We got this.
And that, he was, Benny Nuzzo was acquitted with the help of his attorney, Joe Tacopina.
My
Yeah, his attorney,
acquitted.
his attorney, Joe Tacopina, was basically known to have helped other celebrities beat their cases. But I mean, it's not all roses for Benny Nuzzo. He did end up getting fired from his job at Rikers Island after he was found guilty of stealing those items from Rikers Island, the $1,000 worth of items.
Pension?
Oh yeah, no pension. And you got to think he spent most of his entire life savings on hiring Joe Tacopina to get out.
Damn.
So it's like, yeah, you might have cheated the system on this day or escaped, but you're paying a high fine. You have no pension. You're gonna have to work forever. I mean, yeah, you lost your job. Like, it's crazy. And going back to Timothy Pena again, he spoke with the inspector general and he gave very specific details as to how the heist went down and who took what. For instance, I know I didn't mention that earlier, but for those interested, he states at 1 a.m., Hawkeiser got on the radio and announced the drill, then oversaw to make sure everybody cleared the area. Then Pena stated that once the lobby was empty, Sokol, that once the lobby was empty, Pena pulled on latex gloves and used a key to open the two locks to the glass case that held the painting. And he claims, Sokol actually claims that Nuzzo directed that action. So Nuzzo basically stood there and delegated everything while certain people was the lookout, while other people was opening the case, while other people was taking the painting. Once the case and everything was open, it's both Sokol and Pena state that Nuzzo essentially took the painting, wrapped it up, and that was the last time they ever saw the original painting. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's also why their sentences vary, because again, like some people were a little more helpful, involved, yeah, if you will.
So Hochul is the one who got the jail sentence. Is that right?
Hawkhauser was the one with the 1 to 3 year prison time. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so is he the one who called the fire drill over the radio?
Yes, he is. He's the one who allegedly did that. But he's also, in the audio, he came up a lot. And I mean, he was basically stating in the wire, like, don't do this, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. So like, yeah, I mean, he backed himself in a corner.
I mean, if he had never called the fire drill because of his conscience, maybe this never would have been even facilitated. So he's really maybe more culpable than the guy who opened locks.
Exactly. Yeah, you're definitely a little more responsible there if you initiated that. So, and again, don't do crime, folks. But if you're gonna, if you're gonna
do it, be smart. Damn it.
If you're gonna do it, yeah, please be smart about it. Just, I don't know what to tell you. Ridiculous.
Most criminals are kind of stupid. I mean,
yeah, they're not the brightest, or they think they're too smart. They're too cocky.
Over cocky, right?
Yeah. But it's interesting because I just want to go back for a moment to discuss again. He was Benny Nuzzo was acquitted with the help of his attorney, as I told you. To this day, the Dali painting has yet to be recovered by anyone, and nobody really knows what ended up happening to it, for the record. And there's plenty of people who still believe Nuzzo had the painting, maybe stole the painting, did something with it. But there are some other interesting theories. Some people feel that because this painting, the original, if you will, had traveled around so much, or they just lost where it was at times. And again, it was remaining at the garbage for some time. Some people, the theory is that perhaps the painting that they thought was the original there up until 2003 might not have even been the original. Some people feel that maybe the painting had already been swiped.
Oh man.
But that's a whole other thing. The painting, for the record, it is put on like the National Stolen Painting Registry. That's not the name of the title. I have to look into the exact title. I had it within my notes and it's gone now, but there is a registry for stolen paintings. So that way, if they ever show up, whether it's black market or other things, like they're reported. That painting is within that list. And so far, it's never been reported to show up. So who knows? Some say Nuzo might have destroyed it. Some say he might have tried to sell it and it might have been fake. No one really knows.
Still hanging in his bat cave.
Still hanging in his bat cave. Yeah. Ridiculous.
So do we know if the bad fake is still hanging in Rikers?
It is not. It is not still hanging. No. Now there's nothing. Now they have no art there. At least back then I don't know. To my knowledge, now maybe they replaced it with something else. But the Inspector General, once Nuzo basically once Nuzo was found not guilty, they still kept in touch every now and again, because again, this investigation went on for so long, and the frequency of the Inspector General like trying to check in on Nuzo and go to his house. Like there were times they were even staking out his mother's house, and at one point in time, Nuzo's mother was ill. They got to know Nuzo, the Inspector General got to know Nuzo's mother really well, and like they even invited him in one day that he was like investigating them. They invited him in for dinner, things like that.
Like, Manja, come eat the cake and the coffee.
Yeah, pretty much. So the Inspector General one day had met up with Nuzo in a diner after all was said and done, and Nuzo's asking him, "Do you still think I did it?" And the Inspector General's going like, "You were absolved in the court, so it doesn't matter what I think, but but I'm still trying to connect the dots on what happened here." And if anyone's wondering what happened to everyone else after their sentences, essentially Pena is now a children's author and wrote a book about a young Benjamin Franklin's encounter with bullies. Sokol works in real estate. And Hockhauser was released from prison in 2005, and he lives on Long Island. Got a lot of people that doing crime apparently living on Long Island. But this account right there comes from court records and interviews with Pena, Nuzo, and Caruso. Mm-hmm.
By the way, Justin and I both grew up on Long Island. We are not criminals.
We're not criminals. We're not criminals. We're podcasters.
Yeah.
When you look back at the history of the creative arts, it takes a lot of darkness to create the light the arts bring to the world.
Thanks for joining us this week. And if you enjoyed our conversation, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and go over to Apple Podcasts to rate and review.
Please check out our sources listed in the episode notes.
And you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Crime of the Arts Podcast.
We're looking forward to having you back next week. Until next time, peace out, everybody.
Peace out, everybody.